Welcome back, folks. Today we are deep diving into Assassin's Creed Shadows of the Games.
Oh, yeah, it's finally here.
It is.
Feudal Japan.
It's happening.
I know. Been at the top of the wish list for so long, it feels less like a dream and more like we've actually stepped into one.
I know. It's really cool. And from what we've seen, this isn't just, a fresh coat of paint on the same formula. It seems like Ubisoft is really thinking about, how this incredible setting interacts with, that core Assassin's Creed gameplay loop.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to get into today.
Yeah.
Our goal today is simple.
Yeah.
But crucial. Is Assassin's Creed Shadows worth your attention and your money? We've scoured those early details so you don't have to.
Absolutely.
So the core is familiar. You've got your open world, the parkour, the blend of stealth and action.
Yeah.
The real headline here, I think, the element that promises to really redefine that core loop, is the introduction of two distinct playable characters.
Yeah, two very distinct playable characters.
So we have Naoe, the nimble shinobi, and Yasuke, the imposing samurai. What's your initial take on, how this dual protagonist system shapes the game?
Well, I think what's fascinating here is the duality.
Okay.
So Naoe, with her focus on remaining unseen, utilizing a grappling hook for swift rooftop traversal, feels like a direct nod to the series' classic stealth-focused roots, right?
Yeah.
The information that we have, suggests a real emphasis on rewarding players who choose the silent path. Think back to the intricate infiltration possibilities of games like, Blood Money or something like that. The grappling hook seems like it could introduce a similar level of verticality and creative stealth solutions within, these Japanese environments.
A grappling hook, that's the thing that I'm so excited about. It sounds like it could revolutionize, how we navigate this world and engage with the world. It's not just about climbing walls anymore. It's about swinging through the environment and finding completely new angles of approach.
Precisely. Yeah, and then you have Yasuke, who embodies a completely different philosophy, right? Described as a tank wielding a massive kanabo. His gameplay seems centered on direct confrontation, powerful attacks, and skillful parries. It's a stark contrast. Do you want to be the shadow or the storm?
Right, or the storm. It's like you're getting two games in one.
Exactly.
Depending on the mission or even your mood, you can choose to be the unseen infiltrator or the unstoppable warrior.
Totally.
That's a significant degree of player choice baked right into the
it is,
the core gameplay loop.
And if we connect this to the broader spectrum of player preferences, it's a smart move. Some players thrive on the meticulous planning of a perfect stealth run, right? Others find their satisfaction in that visceral combat. This dual character system looks set to accommodate both ends of that spectrum within a single experience.
So let's talk about the setting itself, Feudal Japan. A setting just brimming with visual potential.
Absolutely.
The sources really highlight the care and detail that's gone into its creation.
They do. What's particularly interesting is the mention of dynamic seasonal changes and weather patterns. This isn't just a static backdrop. The environment itself seems like it will be a dynamic factor, influencing not only the visuals. Imagine the beauty of exploring a forest in full autumn foliage, or the serenity of a snow-covered shrine, but potentially gameplay as well, right?
Yeah.
Could a sudden downpour provide cover for a stealthy approach? Could frozen pathways alter enemy patrol routes? These are the kinds of immersive possibilities that dynamic environments can offer.
And it sounds like, the world scale is going to be a bit more focused than, say, Valhalla, which was massive, but could sometimes feel a little spread thin.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping that means, a denser, more engaging experience, less empty space, and more meaningful encounters.
Exactly the description of diverse locales, from bustling towns and imposing castles to tranquil villages and misty forests, coupled with side content that's described as engaging without being overwhelming, suggests a more deliberately crafted open-world experience.
Yeah.
It's about quality over sheer quantity, which is a definite plus for avoiding that open-world fatigue some players experience.
Shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about the narrative.
Okay.
We've got the intertwining stories of Naoe and Yasuke.
Yeah.
The fact that Yasuke is based on a real historical figure,
right,
I think adds a really compelling layer of authenticity.
It truly does.
Yeah.
It injects a historical intrigue that could deeply resonate with players who appreciate that connection to real events.
Yeah.
Yasuke's unique position as an African samurai serving Oda Nobunaga provides a rich and potentially complex foundation for his personal narrative.
But the sources also indicate that, the story will draw upon some familiar Assassin's Creed narrative threads.
Right.
So how do you feel about that balance between, the new and the familiar?
Well, this raises an important point about managing expectations, right? While the setting and the central characters offer fresh lens, the underlying themes of revenge, betrayal, and the machinations of secret orders are deeply ingrained in the series' DNA. For some players, this familiarity might be a comforting anchor, a sense of returning to what they know and enjoy. For others, it might feel like a missed opportunity to break entirely new ground. Ultimately, the success will likely hinge on how effectively these familiar tropes are woven into the unique tapestry of feudal Japan and the personal journeys of Naoe and Yasuke.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty, the mechanics of actually playing as these two very distinct characters. We talked about their core roles. But what about the specifics? How do their combat and stealth systems differ in practice?
Sure. So, as we mentioned, Yasuke is the direct combatant, emphasizing powerful strikes, and pairing the descriptions we have suggest a more grounded, impactful combat rhythm compared to some previous iterations. But what's particularly encouraging is the reported emphasis on stealth for Naoe. The sources indicate a genuine return to rewarding players who utilize stealth effectively. This isn't just about pressing a button to hide in bushes. It seems to involve more intricate environmental interactions and strategic planning.
And that's such great news for longtime fans who've been craving that classic Assassin's Creed feel.
It is.
That core fantasy of being a lethal shadow, silently eliminating targets,
Right.
It's so key to the identity
of
the series.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Naoe's grappling hook appears to be more than just a traversal tool. It seems deeply integrated into her stealth gameplay, offering opportunities to reach elevated vantage points, create distractions, and even swiftly take down enemies from above in ways we haven't seen before. The reported toning down of extensive RPG progression systems also suggests a greater focus on mastering these core gameplay mechanics, rather than being overly reliant on stat boosts. You'll still have gear and abilities, but it sounds more directly tied to enhancing your chosen playstyle rather than endless number crunching.
Now, no major game releases without its potential hiccups.
Right.
What are we seeing so far?
Yeah.
In terms of the technical aspects of Assassin's Creed Shadows?
Well, early reports point to solid performance on current-gen consoles and high-end PCs, with impressive visual fidelity, particularly in the lighting and texture details, and decent loading times. However, a significant point of concern for many is the requirement of a persistent internet connection, even for installing the physical version of the game.
That is a huge bummer.
It is, yeah.
That is a huge bummer for a lot of people, I think.
It is.
And something that, potential buyers need to consider.
Yeah.
Carefully.
Absolutely. Raises questions about long-term accessibility and the rights of physical game owners.
Right. And, realistically speaking.
Yeah.
How likely are we to encounter some unexpected moments?
Right. Well, specific examples from this early stage are scarce. It's generally wise to anticipate the possibility of some initial bugs or quirky physics interactions that are not uncommon in large open-world releases. Hopefully, these will be relatively minor and addressed through post-launch updates.
Okay, so let's break it all down.
Yeah.
Someone is on the fence about this game.
Right.
What are the key pros and cons that they should be weighing?
So on the positive side, the feudal Japan setting looks absolutely stunning, and the dual protagonists offer genuinely distinct and appealing ways to play the apparent return to a more rewarding stealth experience, coupled with a well-designed and appropriately paced open world, are significant draws. And the combat system, catering to both direct and stealthy approaches, seems promising.
And what about the potential downsides?
Well, we have the possibility of narrative that, while engaging, might lean too heavily on familiar Assassin's Creed tropes for some Nagonikas around. The always-online requirement for physical copies is a legitimate concern. The likely presence of some initial technical glitches is something to be aware of. And for those who are hoping for a radical departure from the established Assassin's Creed formula, this might feel more like a refined evolution than a complete reinvention.
Okay, so bringing it all together for you, our listener.
Yeah.
If you have been longing for a return to the satisfying stealth gameplay that defined the earlier Assassin's Creed titles,
right,
and the allure of feudal Japan is strong for you,
right,
then Assassin's Creed Shadows appears to be a very promising experience.
It does.
The dual protagonists offer a compelling new dynamic within a beautifully realized and immersive world.
Yeah, and for those who might be new to the Assassin's Creed universe, it could serve as a great entry point. You won't need extensive prior knowledge of the lore to jump in. And the diverse gameplay options offered by Naoe Yasuke should provide an accessible and engaging experience.
However,
yes,
if you find yourself fatigued by open-world games in general, or if you feel like you've simply had your fill of the Assassin's Creed formula, this might not be the game to sway you. It builds upon established foundations rather than venturing into entirely uncharted territory. Ultimately, it looks like Assassin's Creed Shadows has the potential to be a strong entry in the series, particularly for longtime fans and anyone captivated by its historical setting and dual protagonist gameplay.
What's fascinating to me here is how the dual protagonists could encourage players to experience the same scenarios from completely different perspectives and with drastically different tool sets. It raises the question of how the narrative might intertwine these two journeys, and whether choosing one character over the other for certain missions will reveal unique insights or challenges. It's a design choice that could add significant replayability and depth to the overall experience.
That's all for now, folks. Thank you for sticking on. If you found this useful, please subscribe to Uncle Rahul.